They were overwhelmingly elderly people, older people. Now, again, white boomers have the right to have a mass therapy session about the fact that Donald Trump won. But to call it a no kings protest, to act like he is a king, is so utterly preposterous.
Well, the No Kings rally happened and it was peaceful. It was people exercising their First Amendment right to protest. All we had heard leading up from this, from all of the various pundits across the country and even the politicians like MAGA Mike Johnson, was that the No Kings rally was being funded by Hamas, that these were communist, Antifa, America-hating terrorists. None of that turned out to be true. So will the MAGA pundits admit that they were wrong? Sarah Seidner was filling in for Abby Phillip on her CNN show. She had a panel that included MAGA pundits, Pete Seat and Batia Unger Sargon. We're going to take a look at clips from this panel debate on Abby Phillip's show. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
The Trump administration is dumping on Americans expressing their First Amendment rights, and an AI video he posted shows just how filthy Trump's willing to go against those who oppose him. A warning now, in case you haven't finished your dinner. Trump posted this AI video to social media featuring himself. You see him there wearing a crown, flying a fighter jet, and then you see that. It appears that he is dropping feces on protesters marching in the No Kings rallies over the weekend. An estimated 7 million people showed up to those rallies, and there were about 2,000 demonstrations held across the country. But it wasn't just the president doing the crap slinging. His vice president posting this fake video showing Democratic leaders bowing to Trump, who has a crown on, holding a sword there. The White House mocked Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer with this little video or pictures put out. So did the Transportation Department, by the way, putting this out. Trump's communication director took a jab at Kamala Harris's husband with this. And these are the people that Americans are paying to run the government, which, by the way, as you know, is still shut down. And when confronted with Trump's sewage bomb, here's how the Republican Speaker of the House tried to spin it.
The president uses social media to make a point. You can argue he's probably the most effective person who's ever used social media for that. He is using satire to make a point.
All right, we've got our great panel here. Let's start with you, Pete Seat. You're so lucky you're in the hot seat. The president is supposed to be the president for all Americans. Why is this okay?
Well, they're calling it what it is, and that is a partisan charade. It is being completely overblown. Let me back up for a second. The very same people who mocked Donald Trump for his fixation on crowd sizes, saying it was indicative of absolutely nothing, want us to focus on the fact that 98% of Americans had nothing to do with these protests over the weekend. They want to overblow this and exaggerate it and make it sound like it is a massive wave against Donald Trump. What it is a Democrat Party stunt, one that was co-sponsored by the Communist Party of America. It is on the flyer, their logo. That should be disavowed. It should have never been allowed on the flyer to begin with. So the Speaker of the House, I don't agree with all of his language that he's using to describe this, but they're pointing out what it is, and that is just a bunch of partisan politics. If Joe Biden was president, these people wouldn't give a darn.
Do you think that if Joe Biden was president and he posted that video of Republicans who were out there expressing their rights with it dumping crap on
I don't like a lot of the social media that Donald Trump puts out there. He's trolling. You can agree or disagree with the trolling, but it is his style of communicating. He seems to enjoy it, and a lot of his supporters do. I don't.
What do you think about this, Keith? As you hear, the responses from Republicans have been like, oh, he's trolling, oh, he's joking, oh, this is not a serious protest, even though there were some 7 million people out there.
You know, where does it end? What are we doing here? I mean, I was at the protest on Saturday in New York City. It was entirely peaceful. There were 100,000 people or so who were there down 7th Avenue in Manhattan. And there were millions of people at other protests across the country. No, it wasn't the entire population, but even when Dr. King led his marches, there were only a small fragment of the black community who was there. But it was a representation of the power of the people standing up against their government. People have busy lives, and they took time out of their lives to do that. And then to have the President of the United States figuratively crap on them for expressing their right to free speech is an affront to democracy. It's not only juvenile and immature, it's a reflection of where we are as a country today. On top of all that, then you have Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, and other people in the Republican Party saying this is okay because it's just Trump being Trump. Well, last week they were saying it was okay for 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds to make racist comments about Nazis and stuff like that. But now we have the President of the United States literally attacking a 23-year-old, Harry Sisson, dumping crap on him. And that's okay, because that's fair game. But when the Republicans are doing it and they're calling each other Nazis, they're just kids. This is just a reflection of the hypocrisy of the Republican Party.
I think these are good points from Keith Boykin, but the real story here, and I was hoping that Scott Jennings would be on this episode because he was on Abby Phillip show last week and he was really playing into the stuff that MAGA Mike Johnson was saying, which, by the way, is there a bigger weasel in the country than Mike Johnson? But at any rate, Mike Johnson and all the other Republicans and all the other MAGA types where this is funded by Hamas. These are communist, terrorist, Antifa, violent people. Scott Jennings was saying, we know these people are violent. I hope a few of them are peaceful. But now it's all just a big joke. Donald Trump posts this AI video and it's just a big joke now. So which is it? If these violent terrorist groups who were out in the street in the millions, if that was real, then this shouldn't be a joke, right? But MAGA can never admit that they were wrong about something. They're always going to spin it. They're always going to logic pretzel it. And, Pete Seat tries to act like he doesn't go along with this. But like Sarah Seidner said here, imagine if this had been Biden, if Biden had done something like this, or if AI had existed in the time of Obama. Can you imagine a video? I mean, they're still talking about Obama saying you didn't build that, and Hillary Clinton talking about the deplorables. Could you imagine a video of Barack Obama in a fighter jet dropping feces on people? I mean, they would talk about that until the end of time.
All old enough to remember when Hillary Clinton used the deplorables comment, said that half of the people that support Donald Trump were part of this basket of deplorables, and Republicans went crazy, condemning her. To this day, they still do it. So why are Republicans covering for Trump when he does something like this, saying these people are a joke, they're not indicative of America, and then he has this video?
Well, I want to start by saying I totally support the protests. I think that this is, a very important part of what it means to be an American is to raise up your voice in any form that you wish. We have these First Amendment rights, and they are precious and dear. I also think that this was not indicative or representative even of the mainstream Democratic Party. These protests were overwhelmingly white. They were overwhelmingly elderly people, older people. Now, again, white boomers have the right to have a mass therapy session about the fact that Donald Trump won. But to call it a no kings protest, to act like he is a king, is so utterly preposterous. This is a man who won the popular vote. He won every swing state. He is a person who is enacting the exact agenda he promised he was going to enact while he was campaigning. And so what they are actually protesting is the absolute perfection of American democracy, where a person campaigned on an agenda, won the popular vote, and is now enacting that agenda. So it was actually a protest of democracy, all of which is to say the only way to greet such a preposterous proposition, calling this a no kings rally when it's actually an anti-democracy rally, is to crap on it. I'm sorry, is to basically make fun of it. And I think that has been the Trump administration's approach. They didn't try to stop it, God forbid, because he's not a king. They allowed them to have their say. They allowed them to go out there, and then they made fun of them.
How do you
Look,
respond to her argument?
Yeah, first off, it was the largest protest, I believe, in history, right? We never have protests that are the entire population of America. So it was the largest protest. And there's a reason why people are protesting, which is that Trump has not delivered on the stuff he campaigned on. Trump campaigned on lowering the cost of living, on bringing manufacturing back to America, on rebuilding people's means of making a living. And he has failed on those fronts. The only thing that he has done is he has weaponized the U.S. government to go after his political opponents. And that's what people are upset about. That's why it is bringing mainstream people out. I was out in San Francisco, and we marched a few miles. It wasn't old people doing that march. It was people from all walks of life, all races, all ages.
So now the spin has become from right-wingers like Batya Ungar-Sargon. Now it's just, oh, they were just old people. And it was a therapy session. So again, last week before it happened, they were terrorists, they were violent, they were dangerous. Again, Mike Johnson, Scott Jennings, all of these characters. Oh, we know these people are violent. You know, I hope it's not too I hope it's not too bad. And now it's just, oh, they were just these boomers in a therapy session. Look at these ridiculous people. And the no kings aspect of it, some of that is just marketing. I would think that right-wingers and MAGA would understand slogans, you know, when they have the things like drill baby drill and make America great again. Is Donald Trump truly a king? No. I don't think anybody, you know, everybody understands that he's not literally a king. But the no authoritarians rally or the no totalitarians rally doesn't quite have the same ring to it. We know that Donald Trump is an authoritarian. Batya Ungar-Sargon and Pete Seed and Scott Jennings and Ben Ferguson and all these other people that go on Abby Phillip show aren't ever going to admit that. But so many illegal things have happened within this administration. They're trampling so many people's rights. They had Doge that was completely illegal. They're loving getting rid of federal workers. They're sending troops into the cities. So, yeah, not a king, but definitely authoritarian. You can probably tell I was really hoping Scott Jennings was going to be on this episode because he was very strong in his language. I hope that Abby Phillip will have him on sometime this week. But again, it's pretty hilarious to me that we were heading into just this super dangerous situation for the country, according to MAGA Mike Johnson and all the rest of the Republicans, because Hamas was going to be out in the street. You know, think about the ridiculousness of Hamas funding a rally in the United States. It's just absurd. But of course, they still go with the communist thing with Pete Seed here. Obviously, anybody who would be upset with Donald Trump and not like his policies in the minds of MAGA, well, they must be communists. And also Batya Ungar-Sargon and the rest, they're poo-pooing, no pun intended, the idea of the size of this protest. 7 million people. Some reports are saying the only bigger event was the first Earth Day in 1970, which had 20 million people. I don't know if that counted as a protest or not, but this is certainly one of the biggest protests in the history of the country. And that's another point that MAGA is making is that, like, well, it wasn't everybody. It was only 7 million people. Okay. Again, they can't stand to admit that there are people in the country in significant amounts who don't like what's going on. But to admit that would be denying that the God King is all powerful and the greatest president ever. But let me know what you think about all this. Do you agree with what the MAGA pundits here had to say on Abby Phillip's show, or do you agree with the more moderate view, my view, that this was a significant event? It was not a violent, terrorist-funded protest like MAGA was making it out to be? Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.